Hi, this is my last track guide for second map hack of TmT. It's off the track TmT-JealouS by Kino, and the world record here is 45.84 by Neo, with my best time being 45.94. You probably know how this works by now, but for those who don't know, I will go through the replay slowly first to show off details and give some tips, and after I'm done with that, I will show the replay normally as well. Okay, let's begin. So this track starts off with something that you often see tracks have in the start, which is a very steep downhill. The trick to drive fast in these are to do a quick zigzag movement as you drive over it. Because the track got a very long turn to the right coming directly after this downhill, I position my car slightly to the left as I start driving. Then, just as the downhill is about to begin, I quickly steer to the left so that I will go on a diagonal path, and shortly after I counter-steer to the right and take as short of a path as I can. If done correctly, your front wheels will never leave the ground and you won't lose any speed this way. Now keep holding that right from the zigzag and try to take as short of a line as you can through this long turn to the right. You can save some valuable time here if you do it good. During this right turn we have a transition to the blue floor, and then as the turn ends we will go back up on the road again, followed by a small jump. Now, take the jump and land quite a lot to the left, but not too much. For this turn we have a small hill to the right, and you don't want to drive over that one too much, as you would then lose a lot of speed. But because we have an immediate turn to the left after, you don't want to go too wide either, and you will then get a very bad angle for the next turn. So try to drive around the middle of the road here. As you take this turn. You might get some small drifts here, as I did, because of the hill, but the shorter line and the better position for the next turn will make up for that. So, as you can see, this upcoming turn here is pretty narrow, and that's why you need to be a lot to the right coming into it. As soon as the transition starts here, begin to turn left. Then, just before you drive up on the road again, start braking so that you will immediately land into a drift. So I start my brake here. Of course, avoid the pole and then release your drift just before passing this turn. If done well, you will drive through this turn pretty close to the wall here with a lot of speed. Sadly, I did not hit this turn that well. I was close to the wall, but I didn't have that much speed, which made me lose some time, because we have a pretty long stretch ahead of us here. Now, coming up after this, we have a drift to the right. This one you want to take pretty wide, since there will be a quick turn to the left coming up after it. Also, there's an uphill here, so you can't go too much to the right either, then you will lose your grip and lose your speed. So you kind of have small options here. And after this part is a very long turn to the left, so you want to make sure that you turn as fast as you can to the left here through this turn, and get as short of a line as possible through this long turn here. That will save you quite a lot of time actually. Now, coming up after this is two similar turns in a row. First off is a drift to the left here, and you basically want to get a good line from this turn to the next one and not go too wide either. Also try to drive over the borders, although keep in mind that it's pretty risky, so may not be worth doing it in matches. Here I went a bit too risky myself and didn't have the best line, as you can see, which also affected me slightly for the next turn. So now we have a small downhill here, followed by an uphill drift to the right. Begin your drift for this turn pretty wide, and then release the drift and try to time it so that you get a lot of speed out of this turn, because we have another stretch after this. But also try not to go too wide through it, as you need to turn a lot to the right after this one. So here I also went a bit too wide, as you can see, so I lost some additional time. Next off, we have a pretty small gap here that you have to drive past, and then a downhill drive to the left. Start your drift just before the downhill begins here, and then release it shortly after, around here. Similar to earlier, we again have a quick turn coming up with a small hill here, this time to the right. So again, you want to try go a bit wide through this turn, so that you don't lose your grip over this hill here. And then, just as you approach this wall here, quickly turn to the right for as short of a path as you can. Now after that we have a very steep downhill followed by a turn to the right. Now at this downhill here, you can actually have too much speed entering it, and you can lose your grip going through it. So what I do is that I quickly tap the brake here to make sure that I don't have too much speed. Then at the same time I start steering to the right so that I go into a natural drift thanks to this downhill here. And then as I reach the bottom of the hill, I tap the brake once again. This time to extend my drift, and I also try to push myself a bit to the left as we have an uphill once again here. So you don't want to drive too much to the right, you want to be a bit to the left to keep your grip. Alright, following that we have two poles and you want to drive through them in the middle like this. And then we have a jump followed by an uphill drift to the left. This one can also be a bit tricky to time right, but try to position yourself a lot to the left before the jump. And make sure that you land steering slightly to the left, like this. Now as you land, start tapping the brake to adjust your drift as you go through this left turn here. As said, it is pretty hard to time this correctly, but try to stay somewhat close to the wall here and with as much speed as you can without going too much to the right, since then you can lose your grip again. Now we're getting close to the end of the track here with one turn remaining. For this last part of the track, position yourself a bit to the right just after the previous turn, like this, and then just try to go as close to the left wall here. Then just before the very last turn is coming up, start your drift before this tiny jump here, so that you land into a drift. Then extend that drift and tap the brake as you see fit. Now this hill here is the last obstacle of the track, and you can save a lot of time here actually if you drive up on it with your two inner wheels like this. And at the same time you keep your grip on the road with your two outer wheels. That way you get a very short line for this last turn, and combined with a lot of speed you can actually gain a considerate amount of time, which is exactly what I did, as I think I did it pretty decently as you can see. Then all that's left is to drive into the finish and end off this track guide. I hope it could help some of you, and here comes the normal replay now. Thanks for watching.